think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Welcome to the latest SELPA Snippet. This snippet is about initial IEPs and when to affirm them. This is a prequel to the smash hit SELPA Snippet 7 Days, which is up for several awards in the short form SELPA video category.
We created this separate snippet for initial IEPs because of the SEIS structure and how the outcome of an initial IEP is reported to the California Department of Education, also known as CDE. Let's talk about the definition of an initial IEP first. Fape Guy?
Thanks, Ace. An initial IEP is held for a student who is not currently eligible for special education services. Let's talk about some of the steps now. The first step after receiving a referral is to generate an assessment plan. Sheri, what if the student doesn't have a SEIS record?
The student will need a SEIS record so you can generate the assessment plan. Please refer to our SELPA Snippet, SEIS, Adding and Requesting Records, where we go through the process of adding a new SEIS record. That assessment plan is sent to the parent for signature. John?
To proceed, you need to have parent consent in the form of a signature on the assessment plan. Once you have that signature, then the 60-day timeline to complete assessment starts.
This is also when the student is required to be reported to the state.
Sheri, how do we report to the state?
A transaction is created in SEIS. You need to report that the student is pending an initial evaluation to CalPADS. To create a transaction in SEIS, go to CalPADS Student, update the date of referral, who made the referral, the date the district received written consent, the meeting type will be 30, pending initial evaluation, with a plan type 300. Click Save. This will create a reportable transaction. Because the student is reportable at this point, it's important to note that CDE will be monitoring your district to ensure that the 60-day timeline is met. John?
Legally, you must hold a meeting within 60 days after receiving the assigned assessment plan to determine whether the student is eligible for special education services.
But what about if there's a summer break or the parent's a no-show? Are there any exceptions?
Yes, there are some exceptions to the 60-day rule. We'll be covering these exceptions in a separate SELPA Snippet video called Everything You Wanted to Know About Delay Codes But Were Afraid to Ask.
So, what happens at an initial IEP meeting?
The assessment report will be presented and the team decides whether or not the student is eligible for special education under the appropriate legal criteria. At that point, the parent must be asked whether they consent to eligibility. If they do consent, then the IEP team must develop an IEP including goals, supports and services, placement, etc.
You're talking about written consent, right?
Yes.
So, on the signature page, there are a number of choices under consent. Can you review these?
Absolutely. Let's look over the consent options on the signature page. The first option is used when the parent agrees to eligibility and the rest of the IEP. The second option is used when parent agrees to some, but not all of the IEP. The parent should indicate clearly the parts of the IEP with which they do not agree. The third option is used when the parent declines the initiation of special education services, but agrees to eligibility. Make sure to document this in the notes that parent agreed to eligibility. You should use the fourth option when the team determines that the student isn't eligible for special education. Finally, option 5 is used when a student no longer qualifies for special education and will be exited from special education.
So, John, what happens if a student doesn't qualify?
If the IEP team determines that the student is not eligible, then check the appropriate box on the information eligibility page and have parents sign the signature page indicating that the student is not eligible for special education services. Sheri, what happens on the reporting end?
If a student doesn't qualify, or if the parents decline the initiation of special education services, the meeting is not affirmed. Instead, the plan type is updated to either 700, 800, or 900, and the record is exited as a DNQ or not providing services. Exiting a record with these plan types locks in the meeting as if it was affirmed and creates a reportable transaction. Remember, CDE is monitoring whether the meeting was held on time and the outcome. John, what if the parent declines the offer of Fape?
Make sure to have the parent sign the signature page, consent option 3, and document in the notes that parent agreed to eligibility but not to the initiation of special education services. This is very important because down the road, if parent decides that they would like to start services, the student is already eligible and you don't need to reassess the student. Sheri, any other issues that our viewers need to be aware of?
Just remember, for initial IEPs only, the meeting should not be affirmed until you've received written parent consent.
So that's a wrap from Sonoma County and Charter SELPA on Initial IEPs.
Stay tuned to our YouTube channel for more SELPA snippets.